Second session. I think, we have a lot of information also to tell each other, so that's why probably also in the first session we had less time to debate, but it's good, I think, that we just have this general debate in the afternoon where we can also really ask each other questions and try to put those three cases together. So in this second debate on mass graves, materiality and memorial cultures, in the end our questions are all related, because it's all related to how mass graves and mass grave exhumations influence to a certain extent the way we remember these events. But the questions in this debate are maybe more related really to the materiality of these mass graves, although of course we can just respond to all the other questions as well. So what we try to do in this debate is not only to join different voices from different countries, but also different types of voices. So historians and pathologists, or forensic doctors with activists. So in this debate we'll have that again, because Adis is, I think, more of an activist, if you agree. And Queralt will talk as a historian, and I really hope Andrzej Osowski will appear on Skype at a certain moment during this time frame, who is a geneticist from Poland, and he has been involved in the identification of all these bodies exhumed from Polonia cemetery, for instance, and he has a lot of interesting things to tell about that whole process. But as he is not online, we'll start with Queralt SOLE, who is a historian from the University of Barcelona.
Thank you, Marije. I'm speaking in Spanish, and I asked to Marije if she can to translate my intervention, because for me it's so difficult to speak in English and it's hard. Well, thank you, Marije, for your paper today. Bueno, nos hacían una serie de cuestiones en este segundo debate, y yo creo que una de las cuestiones que en España se tiene que tener en cuenta son las diferencias regionales, de las que habló anteriormente.
Mm-hmm. So we asked a series of questions for the second debate, but for her, one thing which is important to have in mind in Spain is the differences between the regions, as we already talked about before.
Entonces, las mismas diferencias regionales que se están dando ahora, yo creo que también tienen su origen en cómo sucedió la guerra y los 40 años de cómo se hizo frente o se resistió o no a los 40 años de dictadura.
So the same differences that we see now between the regions in the process of exhumations, they origin in the conflict of the Spanish Civil War and the way they opposed or not to the war.
Entonces hay zonas en España que creo que la memoria histórica ha impregnado la sociedad.
So there are zones in Spain in which the historical memory, as we call it, has really leaked through into society.
Se ha tomado conciencia, quizás ya había conciencia, ya la transición se hizo de una forma más clara a nivel a lo mejor de símbolos y de querer romper con el pasado.
So in these regions there is more consciousness about what happened. Also already during the transition there was more consciousness about how to treat this past, and also on a symbolic level.
Y otras zonas en las que pues este los cambios que se produjeron durante la transición en los años 70 y 80 fueron menores.
And other regions where the changes which were produced during the Spanish transition were smaller.
Entonces coincide bastante las comunidades autónomas que han ido aprobando leyes alrededor de las exhumaciones, más pronto o más tarde, con el hecho de cómo se vivió la guerra y cómo se vivió la transición.
So there is a coincidence between those autonomous regions and the way they are now legislating historical memory with the way they, the position they had during the Spanish Civil War and the way they lived the Spanish transition.
De hecho, yo creo que hacen falta más estudios históricos para ver cómo en las zonas donde no ha habido políticas públicas o de exhumaciones, etcétera, son las zonas en las que también los familiares de las víctimas quedaron sin redes sociales y tuvieron que marcharse.
So she thinks there is more historical research needed about those zones where there is no consciousness about the past conflict, and that there are families who were left without any social structures and they had to finally leave these regions.
Entonces, donde la memoria histórica se ha impregnado, yo creo que ha nacido una cultura alrededor de recordar el pasado, también con instrumentos propios del presente. Entonces se está dando, yo pienso, donde está triunfando la memoria histórica desde hace unos años, y se empieza a notar últimamente una explosión de símbolos culturales que recogen todas estas cuestiones vividas en los últimos 15 años, sobre todo.
So in those zones where there was a take of consciousness about the crimes of the Spanish Civil War, the last 15 years have resulted in a kind of explosion of all kinds of cultural memory practices which take up present tools to talk about those events in the past.
Entonces hay grupos de música, cantautores, obras de teatro.
So we have theater plays, musical groups, singer-songwriters.
Expresiones artísticas muy diversas.
All kinds of diverse artistic expressions.
Y también series de televisión, películas, documentales.
Documentaries.
Y aquí también podríamos ver formas de tratar la memoria histórica por parte de ciertos canales de televisión, privados o estatales, con otros canales de televisión de otras comunidades autónomas.
What we also should look at is the way historical memory is treated by certain national Spanish television channels and, for instance, autonomous television channels.
Luego yo creo que se ha dado un cambio muy importante donde los historiadores hemos perdido, o estamos perdiendo, porque las fosas comunes han hecho emerger la materialidad de los huesos, pero también de los elementos físicos y de los objetos de un pasado muy reciente.
So there's another part which historians might have lost or are losing, which is the materiality that comes out of these graves, which are not only bones but also objects and so on. We just talked about this in the break.
After we can talk about, but la gente no cree al historiador y no cree a los papeles, que pueden mentir desde su punto de vista, pero sí que creen al arqueólogo o forense que está abriendo una fosa y que les dice, desde el punto de vista del familiar de la víctima, mucho la verdad. O sea que el historiador, desde su punto de vista, pues puede mentir.
So people don't believe anymore historians or papers or archives, but they do believe in the archaeologist who opens a grave and tells them the truth on the basis of material.
Yo creo que la sociedad tiene muy claro que el historiador puede interpretar desde un punto de vista particular los documentos y la voz oral, etcétera, pero no lo tiene asimilado respecto a la arqueología y la antropología y la ciencia forense, que también entra un factor interpretativo importante.
So she thinks that generally society understands very well that the historian does a work of interpretation on basis of archival material, but they don't have that consciousness when it comes to archaeologists or forensics, that there is also an interpretation process from.
Entonces yo creo que esta materialidad que estamos viviendo se traslada también a cómo será la memoria en el futuro, que también se basa en la materialidad de los monumentos, en la materialidad del certificado que se da a las familias, en la materialidad obviamente de los huesos y del entierro en los cementerios. Es decir, yo creo que el objeto, hueso objeto o monumento, etcétera, pues está pasando a tener mucha importancia junto con las imágenes.
So this process also has an influence in the way we will create memory for the future. So the focus on objects, a bone as an object, but also monument as an object, and related to that also visual culture has a lot of influence in the modern memory cultures.
Entonces yo pienso que la imagen, las imágenes van a ser, es decir, no tanto la interpretación histórica, la historia y los trabajos hechos, sino las imágenes que van a quedar, ¿no? Que van a ser lo que perviva de todos estos movimientos, ¿no? de memoria en España, de memoria histórica. Imágenes que además pues son a veces, puedes encontrar en la red muy mal contextualizadas, o que no, es decir, no sé hasta qué punto se sabrá hacer un análisis, no científico, sino un análisis de llevar a término lo que es una buena fuente en la red y lo que no, porque la gente en general pues discrimina muy poco.
So what will stay of this whole process, what will be the traces of this whole process will be images, she thinks, visual images which are on the web, which many times are not very well contextualized, and this will be the traces of this whole process and not stories or something like that. And the problem with that is that we might not really have the tools, or we might not really learn how to really interpret these images.
Entonces, también como reflexión, un poco el hecho de que toda la población española, preguntes a quien preguntes, tiene un caso relacionado con la guerra civil, ya sea muerte, exilio, prisión, represión o no, o formando parte de las tropas franquistas, pero todo el mundo tiene relación familiar hasta el tercer grado con cosas que sucedieron en la guerra civil.
So another point of reflection on this topic is that any Spanish citizen has to a certain degree a relation to the Spanish Civil War through death, through exile, and so yeah, everybody to some extent is related to this story still to a third degree.
Entonces esto pues también condiciona las actuaciones que se llevan a término a nivel de memoria histórica y hasta qué punto se profundiza o no.
And this conditions still the way memory is made about the Spanish Civil War, so until what point they can memorialize or not, or in what way or not.
Y luego también tiene que ver la memoria histórica, las exhumaciones, en el grado, o yo creo que se tiene que empezar también a investigar el grado de confianza en las instituciones. Es decir, una institución que no te apoya, como antes Miguel comentaba, ¿no? El Estado que no apoya estas exhumaciones, pues hay toda una serie de la población que forzosamente, creo yo, debe desconfiar respecto a sus instituciones.
What we also should research is the level of confidence citizens have in state institutions. because exactly as Miguel told us in the morning, if there are certain state institutions who don't support certain memory processes, that probably influences in the way people relate to their trust in these institutions.
Y bueno, por último, sí que creo que el historiador tendrá trabajo más adelante al estudiar, como ya se está empezando a hacer, todos estos procesos desde un punto de vista historiográfico. Y es muy curioso y muy enriquecedor porque estudias unas cuestiones de hace 80 años, en cómo repercuten actualmente, y ya estás haciendo la historia de esta repercusión actual de hechos de hace 80 años. Estoy liando, pero...
So this is going to be a bit difficult to translate. So the work of the historian that will come out of this whole process will be to study all these processes in a historiographical way, which means that you will have the history of the Spanish Civil War, which to a certain extent has an influence on what is happening now on memory level. And, or just that, the way they are related to each other.
Es decir, el historiador que hace, hay historiadores del presente,
So you have historians who study the present.
Pero es muy curioso porque en este trabajo analítico es imposible estudiar este presente sin conocer en profundidad el pasado de la guerra civil y el franquismo.
Yeah, so you have historians who study the present, but it is impossible to do this analytical process without really having profound knowledge of the history of the Spanish Civil War.
Creo que podemos debatir.
Yeah. So this is a little bit the points that she wants to bring into the debate, right? So thank you a lot.
Thank you, Marije. I'm
Queralt.
sorry.
I'm learning. Maybe I can switch careers. No Andrzej Ossowski. That means that Alice, I would like to ask you to tell us what you had in mind.
I would kindly ask, could you translate also Bosnia? Sorry for everybody that I'm changing my perspective here. I don't like to be in this position. I like to be more in the round table, but unfortunately we have one beamer. So I will show you some examples. How do we remember mass graves in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and maybe some examples how the remembering process is going on, or how culture of remembrance is built in Bosnia and Herzegovina. On the specific case of remembrance of missing people or missing persons. In that point, I can give my presentation from the different identities that I have. One of my identity is a family member of a missing person, or a family member of a victim of war crimes. The second layer of my identity is an activist for human rights, or activist for the rights of those who are missing. I will explain it more deeply during my presentation. And maybe the third part of my identity is a psychologist, or as a professional who tries to keep the professional distance and tries to understand the processes that's going on in human beings when they face trauma, or when they create memory on their beloved ones who went missing or who were victims of crimes. So firstly, my identity as a family member of missing persons. So it's not easy, but from the other side, I learned a lot from this experience. I see it as an experience. I didn't choose to be that, or nobody chose. But anyway, it is a process that is going on in dealing with this trauma in my family. Because you know what the war did in Bosnia is the war kind of like destroyed the ties of a family. So families get in every corner of the world. They barely communicate with each other. Sometimes family members blame the other family members for not saving the one who was killed, who was raped, who was a victim of crimes. So there are many processes going on within the family. From the other side, what the question is like, what we did to find our family members who are still missing. So it was also a painful process for my mother, but it was not him. It's this kind of like expectation and this kind of like hope. So also it can be connected to mass graves or like the excavation process, because when we find mass grave in Bosnia, it's a sparkle for hope. So what we hope to find somebody that we are missing, or we hope to complete the body of somebody that we have already buried and identified, but the body was not complete because mass graves were removed from one place to another place to hide the crime that happened there. So that was kind of like the process of maybe also the starting process of dealing with the past, and then later we went on with this. And when we came back from Germany, we were there as refugees. It was the process of identification. So during that time, we came back in December 1997, but 1998, my mother was called for this classical method of identification because they found several mass graves in the area where my village is and where my town is, and they called her like, okay, let's try, maybe your husband is here somewhere. So it was also a traumatic event. So because the family members had to go to observe the body, to look at the clothes, to look at certain objects that were found with the bodies, and recognize the bodies through these objects and to these clothes. This method showed that, as my colleague Adis said, it was like 30 or 40%, it was like wrong identification. Because how can I know a person who disappeared in 1992? I don't know how long this person lived and under which conditions. If he lived several years, probably he cannot wear one shirt for these several years in these conditions. He would change this. So we didn't find this classical method. This classical method of identification created another problem in Bosnia. That's the problem that families who identified their beloved ones through this method of identification of clothes, they buried that body, and they are kind of like not allowing to excavate that body to take examples for the DNA. So because it is a process of re-traumatization of them. So it's really hard to get into this and digging up those who are buried under names and get permission from the family members to do that. So that process is, I think, going still on in Herzegovina, and there were like several cases that I know. There were many of them, but several cases where, for example, a body was buried with the skull of another person. Or so I will show why this happened, because that here is the mass grave Glavica. So it's one maybe of the most difficult mass graves in close to my hometown. 124 people were killed there. They were detainees at one detention camp in Prijedor, in the city of Prijedor, and it is a natural pit, really deep pit. And what was interesting is the story how the the persons who were investigating the missings kind of like get to the story about the location. I discussed this with my colleague from Poland because none of the perpetrators showed the location, which is for me interesting. No, none. Although they were like faced with this huge amount of pain that's around them, because from the city of Prijedor, from 45,000 Muslims or Bosniaks who lived there during the 1991 with the census, regarding to the information of the census 1991, 3,176 were like counted as missing 1996. So it is big number regarding to this population. And when you multiply this number with 2 or 5 or family members who are related to these missing persons, and you get a huge number of those who were affected with this. And what is for me, and the perpetrators were from these local communities. They were not somebody who came from Serbia or somebody who came like 300 kilometers away and killed those civilians, or took them from the detention camp and drove them to this pit and killed them there. So it's a question that has to be answered by psychologists or by further research. But anyway, interesting with this pit is that 2 bodies from the Second World War were found there also. They were like Muslims who were killed by the Tito regime, and nobody knew about the location. So how is this location remembered now? So here, that's the memorial that's built on this side. So it looks like a как se kaže well, yeah, well, and it's sieged on the so it's like, so you can see here like it's like some of the family members of those who were found there, like they wanted to put like really concrete into the pit, so that this pit will never be used again for a mass grave. To send this a message, because like Second World War, people were killed, put into the pit. We didn't know where they are. This war, people were killed. We barely find the information where they are. And this pit was found because on these shootings, when the perpetrators killed the detainees, one person succeeded somehow to survive, and that person went to the nearest houses. Their houses were also by local Serbs, because it's a Serb village somehow, but they didn't. They helped him just to cure a little bit the wounds, and they said to him, you can't stay here. We have to go to your village there somewhere. And that person went to the other Muslim village there and told the story about the pit. And when he told the story, he died. So the information about the pit was kind of like kept in the family that knew the story. So, and then it came to the police, and the pit was found. So every 5th of August, this is commemorated by gathering of family members and other activists, and it's a memorial site that's still not, so you cannot see it from here, but it's a memorial site that's not finished. There are certain ideas how to finish it, but lack of financial resources anyway is the huge problem. So another thing, what I want to tell you, what I want to show you, this is the maybe most really, but my colleague Agnes, he mentioned this mass grave, it's Tomašica mass grave. There were attempts to excavate this mass grave in the year 2003 something, but when they dig the surface, they found that those bodies were removed, so they changed the location. They didn't dig further, deeper. So In the second attempt, 2013, they dig deeper and found bodies there. What is interesting with this mass grave is because of the constitution, like of the soil, the bodies were not decomposed. So you could really see not the eyes, but the skin of the bodies. You could see the shape, and you could kind of like relate to the bodies, which is also one traumatic event for the family members. At that time, when this mass grave was discovered, the second time, 2013, I was doing an oral history project in this city, and I took interviews. I talked with family members of missings. Also, I talked with myself. Family members. It was interesting how they wanted to kind of like make this process quicker. So to really dig up the bodies and to kind of like release their like pain or their like tension that was in them like for these years, because they put all the hope in this mass grave, because the media was telling this is the biggest mass grave in Bosnia, this is the mass grave, all the remaining missing from this city will be found there, and none, not all were found here, but a lot of them for sure were, and they were all victims of civilian victims of war crimes. They were committed during the process of ethnic cleansing of one village, or of several villages in this town, villages. But what is for me interesting, in this mass grave were not found victims of a crime that was committed to mostly women and children victims, which is also kind of like interesting when you see how the political maybe situation, or how the perpetrators kind of like can separate the male bodies and the women bodies, children bodies, because like if you kill a male, which is like he can be a soldier, you can tell the narrative, okay, he was killed during the fighting, or like he had a weapon with him. But if you kill children, or if you kill like my aunt was killed in one of the crimes, she was 68-year-old woman. So it's like if you kill a 68-year-old woman and a 4-year-old child, like what can you say? What's the justification of your crime? So anyway, like none of the crime has a justification, but anyway, how did you tell the story? And always it is important, it is kind of interesting to see how we get this information about the mass graves, because nowadays a lot of like the perpetrators, they know it, and they give the information from time to time, because maybe it's a psychological pain or trauma, or they want to kind of like, they are facing the as I said previously, the huge amount of pain that's around them, because they live in this community. Their children are going to the schools, and although the official narrative is totally against this, like the official narrative of this city tells the story about soldiers who fall, about some victims, about the glorified liberator of our people, of our group, about the protector of our town, but they do not. There is no space for remembering, for example, killed women, killed children. 102 children were killed in this town. 256 children, 256 women, mostly elder people, and the rest are like male, middle-aged, and older. So it's maybe also symbolic. When I went here, I wanted to bring here a book which is called about those missing in Prijedor, and the book was too heavy for my cabin bag. You know, like, and it is also symbolic, because also the pain with these pictures of 3,156 people, including these children, and when you see also the narrative about these crimes in which they died or were killed, these persons, and when you see their faces, like really intense pain. And in one of the mass graves, they found a jacket of one child, and the jacket had like 4 bullets from a shield, and it was really intense when we kind of like looked at this artifact. You know, like it's a child jacket, you know, like, and you shoot 4 bullets in a child, like who is like 4 years old, and it is really intense pain. So that's me. So what I'm doing as an activist, I'm trying to give back the identity to those missing, because in the narrative, in the memory, unfortunately, missing persons are how can I call it? Number. Yeah, number. They are number. They are statistical data. They are maybe a DNA code. You know, like, and maybe to do a comparison, in order to extract the DNA from a body, you have to
you have to crush the bones.
You have to crush some bones. And in Prijedor, there was a case. So you have there is this case when just 2 teeth were found, or part of the skull with 2 teeth, and from tooths, they are the best to take from DNA. But if you crush 2 of them, 2 little bones, and you can just have the name of the person which the bones belong, and nothing else. And that happened to a really old a guy in Prijedor, and his wife. To his 2 sons were missing, and they were not married, they didn't have children, no. So his whole future of his family was kind of like erased. And they found this 2, and he has the proof that his son was, or the body of his son was there. Nothing else. And that his son probably is there. So is you showed the picture about the plate that Hugo chose. That's the plate of the Koricani Cliff crime. Koricani Cliff, it's on the way between Banja Luka and Travnik. I don't know the geography, how much you know. It's on a mountain, and it's a cliff where during the war they were like, from time to time they were like buses from Prijedor going. It was also an exchange of prisoners. Buses from Prijedor going with Muslims to Travnik, which was the territory held by the army of Bosnia, not the Serb territory. And on the 20th of August 1992, a crime was there committed where 200 male persons were took out from the buses and killed in this area of this cliff, and their bodies were thrown down. So every year there is a commemoration. Family members get together and they throw like roses at that point. And this part of the territory is in the Republic of Srpska, and they do not as an institution. and the bodies were there for a couple of days after the killing, and then the body is began to smell. And the people who lived there, they were kind of like, we have to do something. Like they went to their mayor during the war, like they went to their mayor, we have to remove the bodies. And what they did, they didn't have money at the time, and like let's burn the bodies. And what is for me interesting, at that point they didn't get to the idea, okay, let's call those, the other side, let's make a ceasefire or something, like get their dead. And they burned their bodies, part of the bodies burned, and part of the body were removed to another location that remains still unknown. So last year, or last 2 years, there was this excavation process there. It's really difficult terrain because it's a cliff, and it's a really difficult process, and they managed to find some remains. So when you find some remains, it does not mean that you find, if you find 500 bones, it doesn't mean that you find 500 persons. You can find 3 persons, or like 40 persons. It depends how you organize the bodies, the bones. And depends on the DNA data. So what I'm trying as an activist, I'm trying to give back the identity, to tell a story about those people who are numbers, to give them a human face. So because, you know, like I call this rehumanization of the missing, because they had their lives. They were not statistical data from the beginning of their birth. They had their passions, they had their like family members, they had their like what they loved, how they lived their life. So I'm trying to do that. I don't know. So that's the plate from the quiz. I call this. This is called sometimes in our language, activist language, it's like moving memoria, because on that day when the commemoration happened, the plate is brought to that place and brought back again to the city, which is also a symbolic act, because the plate is going the way that was used, you know, like in which the victims went, you know, like, and it's a moving thing. It's moving memorial, I call it, or we call it in this activist language. So, as a psychologist, I don't know what to do. I try to keep the professional distance, although I am really into this topic, and sometimes it's really difficult to separate personal, professional, and something that's in between. But you know, like our brain likes to have finished things. You know, like we like to kind of like to find the end of a story, to say, okay, that's it and fine. But if you have a missing person, it depends. How can you find the ends? And sometimes you are aware that you will never find that one who are you searching for, or like you will never succeed to build a memorial or like to do something. But from the other side, then you get okay with these symbolic acts. Okay, you get okay with small symbolic acts or activism, or like things that you produce. For example, I and some other colleagues, we produced also like short movie clips, symbolic clips, or like installation in the city. I had one installation. In the city of Bihać, because of the court there in front of the court, who is in charge of finding the missing from my town, and it was like installation mass grave in the city center, because I brought earth from mass graves in front of the door of the court, and you're like, okay, that you have to deal with this, and it was a powerful message. They started a case, and they now found some information about the missing, for example, of my father and some other missings, and the case is now open, and the investigation is going on, and some potential perpetrators can be named already. So also if you ask Alice, like, who started the process of excavation of mass grave, like, yes, international organization or international community, they had a big role in this, but it was, from my point, it was the family members from the beginning. Because when people, in case of this city of Prijedor, the city of Prijedor is remained, after the Dayton Peace Agreement, remained in the part that is governed by the Serbs, or the part that was not liberated by the Bosnian army. So, during 1996, 1997, there was 1998, especially 1998, it was a lot of people wanted to go to their homes, and they wanted to return to live their lives in their home, not to live as a refugee anymore, because it's peace now, we can go, I want to go. And when they came to home, they literally found remains of some persons in the yards. You know, like at that time, like the yards were like full of grass and, you know, like uncultivated land and something. And they literally found bones. Because not all the killed persons were like buried during the war. Some of the buried their beloved ones by themselves, and they knew their location, and they kind of like started, okay, we have to do something with this, we have to. And this, going back also, and the get together, they formed associations. And what is also interesting, maybe regarding to the categories of war or like sites, maybe the family members of missing persons are the first victim organization from each side who sat together and say, like, okay, let's organize the solution of this problem. You know, like, I have a beloved one who is missing, you have a beloved one, let's try to solve. Of course, there was this process from the government side, like forming commission for finding the missing and forming some lists, and there was this list of the Red Cross, there was this list of other organizations, so it's kind of like they started the process. I would say that. And they are kind of like also not leading the process, they are like mostly older people who are now just focused in finding their husbands, their sons, their daughters, their wives, their mothers, and they do not nothing know. They don't want what does it mean contemporary art or like symbolic closure of traumatic experience or something. They are just focused. That's one problem that we are facing now, and because it is a process of healing, not healing of the family members of the missing, it's a process of community healing. Mm-hmm. And community dealing with past. Absolutely. So, thank you very much. I took maybe more time, but I feel the need to tell this. And one more thing. There's this, I don't know much about, I don't want to go into this deeper. I know the basic facts about Srebrenica, but exactly some locations of mass grave, I'm not the expert in this. But when there was a call for the Peručica lake, there is this hydro plant close to Srebrenica and Visegrad, and at some point they had to repair the turbines, and they had to stop the water, and there was the call for the community to help to search this area to find some bodies. And it was the mobilization where like me and other activists and other youth activists, we joined this action, and it was like, and trying to because it was not for 2 years. They stopped this for like 20 days, and you had 20 days time to dig the no, the bottom of the lake. And I think 160 bodies were found there in this activist act of really fast trying to find as much as possible. And some German soldiers from the Second World War.
Always.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I would add just one thing because it crosses my mind the importance of media presentation of crime. Prijedor, when you look at it statistically, has the highest rate of missing persons when you consider the number of the people who live in the Prijedor. On the other hand, Srebrenica has lower percentage, but it's way much more popularized by the people. Actually, when you look at it, no one knows about the crimes in the Prijedor, and they are much worse than those in the crimes in Srebrenica. So those are the two cities with the biggest crime made there. And even on the criminal court, Srebrenica is recognized as a genocide, Prijedor not. Because I would say the whole process came late to be popularized in the media, and just there are tries to prove genocide again in Prijedor, but I think it's late. In a court surroundings, but in some, I would say, memory, it's definitely there as a genocide. But just media just doesn't present it as it is.
But from the angle of psychology, it is interesting why people during the Mladic case trial in the ICDJ, they were like expecting to be victims of genocide in Prijedor, like, okay, genocide, no, not genocide. It's like really strange situation. Like, okay, like, I don't know the answer to this, but it's this interesting phenomenon. People were following the reading of his judgment, and like they were like cheering for being victims of genocide. Because I think genocide brings this recognition that victim need. But do we need? So that's which is.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Regarding the genocide, and I think there is a competition even of being a victim of genocide and labeling the perpetrators of perpetrating genocide. I think it's because of the genocide that the term genocide has been coined based on the Holocaust, which is the ultimate evil. Yes? So if we call someone a genocide perpetrator, we compare him to the perpetrators of the genocide. And also, if we label ourselves genocide victims, it means that we are victims of the worst possible evil. And there is such a debate in Poland, and the desire to label Katyn massacre a genocide, which, in my personal opinion, was not a genocide; it was a war crime and crime against community. But there is a tendency to call it genocide, and if someone doesn't call it genocide, it's by some nationalist circles regarded as not patriotic enough.
I have one question for Miguel. Because here we are talking about on the term in which we describe the crime and the concept, and also the prestige, international prestige attached to this, because there is this historian, Paul Preston, one of the biggest historians in Spain. He has a book called The Spanish Holocaust, which he has been heavily criticized because he doesn't even conceptualize it. It's kind of a marketing strategy, like big book, big name and big author, big name. No? But here, for example, the idea of victim has also been questioned. No?
Yeah.
The idea of victim. Yeah, I know you like to play.
entonces?
Yes.
Gracias. A ver,
I'll try.
sí, ha habido una gran discusión, pero porque tiene trascendencia. Yo sé que, por ejemplo, desde un punto de vista sociológico, la gente parece que genocidio es más grave que crímenes de guerra o crímenes contra la humanidad.
So from a sociological point of view, genocide seems worse than war crimes or crimes against humanity.
Sin embargo, internacionalmente están en el mismo capítulo, en los mismos tratados, y
But
tienen las
actually
mismas
they're the
penas
same
y la misma gravedad.
And they have the same level of importance.
La diferencia importante que hay entre los dos, entre crímenes de lesa humanidad y genocidio, es que en el genocidio se exige más requisitos para probar ese delito.
So the difference between crimes against humanity and genocide is that for genocide there are more requirements to prove that it is.
¿Por qué? Porque en crímenes de lesa humanidad lo único que tengo que acreditar es que hay un plan de exterminio por cualquier motivo étnico, religioso, político. Sin embargo, en genocidio no se incluyó el político. Y entonces, genocidio solo está para los crímenes y tienes que acreditar que Hitler, aparte de querer exterminar a la gente en general por razones políticas, les quería exterminar por razones étnicas, religiosas o racistas.
Zoe,
So the difference between crime, war crime and genocide,
¿Ya?
the only difference, if I'm not mistaken, is that for genocide the only plan,
Yeah.
intention missing is the political one.
No, it's not political.
No,
Ethnic.
genocidio no.
For
But-
genocide. But it's not political.
But we did politicize.
Ethnic.
Entonces, y además el problema del genocidio es que tienes que acreditar que para que se aplique la intención es exterminar a una etnia o a una religión por el hecho de serlo.
So for genocide, you have to prove that the intention is to exterminate a group on ethnic or religious reason.
Entonces, ¿cuál es el problema? Pues por ejemplo, aquí en España, que hemos tenido empezamos teniendo un gran ejemplo de procedimientos de jurisdicción universal para investigar al mundo entero. Ahora ya lo tenemos cerrado.
So it's
Sí.
saying that there were
Sí.
plans to base a case on an international level,
Hubo una
universal jurisdiction, but it's not.
Hubo una importante discusión jurídico-política en el caso de los militares argentinos que fueron detenidos en España.
So there was a discussion about the Argentine military who were arrested in Spain.
Also the Pinochet case.
The Pinochet
Lo que pasa es que el caso de Pinochet se abrió por los tres motivos, por crímenes contra la humanidad y genocidio, pero como se archivó, al final no tuvimos una sentencia. Pero las sentencias, la única sentencia que hay en España, que es la de el capitán de corbeta Silingo, y todas las sentencias que hay en Latinoamérica son por crímenes de lesa humanidad.
So the only judicial sentence in Spain was for Silingo, the Argentinian, and all.
Captain corbeta.
Yeah, for the Argentinian junta. And the cases in Latin America were for crime against.
En Chile y en Argentina todos son condenados por crímenes de lesa humanidad.
They were all sentenced for crime against humanity.
But to go back to what you said before, because I think it was not clear, is because Spain had a judicial body, the Audiencia Nacional, which had competence over crimes against humanity. And so people from Palestine would come here to Spain, or also in some of the Latin American cases would come to Spain, because Spain had like this jurisdiction.
Into Spain.
No,
in the war.
Wow.
But the problem is sometimes some countries close against the international convenio. Aquí hay una discusión importante también en lo que ahora, si se puede, se traduces, y es, por ejemplo, la Corte de la Haya frente a lo que hacía la Audiencia Nacional. La Corte de la Haya es un tratado firmado por los países con unas condiciones que, por ejemplo, Estados Unidos no ha firmado, ni Israel.
He's talking about the difference between the Spanish judicial body that assumed all these cases and the Hague Tribunal.
Porque este es un tribunal ordinario, normal, no excepcional, creado al efecto.
The Spanish court
Okay.
is just a normal
No,
court,
national.
which had these competences because there was like a loophole in there, and then they got the
La Corte de
competences.
la Haya es, por ejemplo, han protestado los estados africanos porque a los únicos que están procesando, salvo a los serbios y a los africanos, a nadie más.
And the Hague is
Una
it's like
justicia,
between countries, and the US haven't signed them. And it's basically it's been used in the Balkans and also in Africa.
Es una aplicación de una, digamos, legislación restrictiva que solo se aplica a unos países, que son los que menos poder tienen en Naciones Unidas.
So he said that this the Hague Tribunal, I mean, there is a politics behind it also. So the less powerful countries can be prosecuted, whereas the powerful countries are at large, so to speak. They are not affected by this. They create the conditions so they cannot be accused of crimes against humanity. For example, the US.
Claro. Sin embargo, en España tanto el gobierno del PSOE como el gobierno del PP han hecho dos modificaciones legales para restringir los tratados firmados por España para aplicar la jurisdicción universal. Y ahora ya tienen más.
So basically, this loophole that was in Spain is gone because both the right-wing party and the Socialist Party made changes in the law, so they would restrict more and more the possibility of assuming, cases regarding to crimes against humanity, to the point that now it's impossible to do it.
Porque había varias querellas, que una era varias contra Israel, otras contra China y otras contra Estados Unidos.
US, China, and
Dos de ellos
Israel
están en el Consejo de Seguridad de la ONU.
And so they kind of said, what the hell? I mean, all these cases going on in Spain against us, and so they in the UN they kind of.
But regarding to this loophole, there is this case where court in New York said with the same procedure, making it said like the Serbian part of Bosnia should pay 40 million to the detainees who were held in one of the detention camps, especially those 20. There were 30 women, but 5 of them were killed. 25 survived. So the government should pay that money, but that court in New York doesn't have the power to impose this decision to that government. So that is always the problem with this kind of stuff.
It's all politics. If a country doesn't recognize the court actually doesn't need to exist. Since the countries of Balkan recognize the Hague as a court who could decide instead of them for something, because they couldn't agree where to judge both sides, they just agreed, let's judge them somewhere else in a Hague. And that's actually what makes the court powerful. When country who you judge accept the court. Americans can't judge someone in the Balkans. It's just nonsense because no one will accept it. No one will accept the court and the decisions of the court. So it's automatically unneeded. There was, as you know, the biggest around academic circles is this site. Science Hub, who's actually from Ukraine, is a girl who's hosting that site. When you can find all the papers, scientific papers, you can download it for free. And the Americans, because of Elsevier, judged the girl who's Ukrainian, and she has to do some sentence of 50 years and pay something like $10 million. and they can't do anything about it because she's in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Still, it's just nonsense. There are some court directives that really will never be fulfilled.
I think this topic of expectations, that is also maybe a little bit what Queralt pointed at, how I think these mass grave exhumations, they create all kinds of expectations in society, and not only the expectation that this can be named a genocide, but also this expectation that the archaeologist will bring the truth, what you said, or well, expectations. I think there were also a lot of expectations, for instance, in the Bosnia exhumations. So, and I think it's also many times a story of non-fulfilled expectations, because they are too big many times.
There is also another point regarding the expectations in terms of legal terms about crimes against humanity, connected to exhumations, and is that in social anthropology we have like a branch which is called legal anthropology, and this basically studies, for example, other ways of other senses of justice of non-Western culture, for example. How do they deal with conflict and in different ways, but there is a new branch which is also interested in the way in which law affects processes beyond the legal structure, and we call it the social life of rights, of human rights, which means that maybe it's not important that it's important, obviously, that a court has a way, of imposing its sentences. But symbolically, it's also helpful. For example, if you think about the Pinochet case, he was not indicted, but symbolically, the fact that he had to stay created a debate in Chile regarding their own. And also internationally, it looked very, very, very bad to him personally, to his people, and so it's about these symbols. It's not about always about the effectiveness of the law, but also some elements that can have. I learned this from Pablo de Grave. He's a lawyer. He was the UN. The special representative of the UN for trust, justice, reparation, and guarantees of non-recurrence. And so he came to Spain and he said, okay, sometimes we organize like a full-fledged truth commission, and the effect on the population is very limited, whereas sometimes a small, tiny symbolic act really hits the nerve. And so we really don't know sometimes it's not just the legal thing, which is crucial, but sometimes it works in unexpected ways, and it has like a spin-offs, like a social spin-offs, symbolic spin-offs that also should also be taken into consideration, I think. But this is the way in which anthropology looks at the processes, looking at the cultural aspects of.
For example, several examples from Prieto, because a lot of crimes were committed, a lot of trials were also done. It's not that nothing is done regarding punishing the perpetrators, but from the side there are several cases where the one who were convicted, they died, or in prison in Hague, or they were killed. One of the person who was in charge of the police, and the police forces committed a lot of crimes. Most of the crimes were committed by police forces. The chief of police station was killed during the act of arresting him by special troops, Germans, or I think they were like French special troops who wanted to arrest him during his morning fishing, and they killed him. And that was the person, maybe this unfinished, this trial is unfinished. That was a person who could give much more information. That was a person who could kind of like close, maybe also define this mass grave earlier. He was killed in 1997, I think. Simo Drljača is her name. So maybe with his trial a lot of truths would come out, and a lot of processes that family members are going on now would find in this justice some kind of like symbolic reparation of their pain, or something like that. So several cases, when you go in smaller communities and look at these small cases, those processes are really important, and also important that this is done by domestic, maybe, if possible, domestic system, domestic laws, domestic judges. So it's another dimension in Bosnia.
So we had this debate, no? For the other day, I don't remember. In the Casa Velázquez, no? It was on failed exhumations. Exhumaciones fallidas, no?
Yes.
Inacabadas, unfinished
Unfinished.
exhumations. And it was the thing about, for example, your mother, no? The efficacy of the exhumation that your mother promoted, it may be bigger than today, or not. I mean, this is what we were discussing. They were not. It is like the case you were talking about Katina and the related mass graves, where they kind of separated the skulls from the. There was no attempt at unified identification. I mean, the individual genetic identification, which is, I think, has totally transformed the field. But people were happy, or not, I don't know, with bringing the bodies out and kind of embracing them, so to speak, in the community, symbolically, without individual identifications. And that can also have a political content.
Yo lo que pasa es que ahí entiendo perfectamente lo que quieres decir. El proceso ya es una reparación. El problema para mí es que esa reparación al final lo estamos haciendo lo que el Estado o la derecha considera su gente. Digamos, una parte social identificada con una supuesta ideología, ¿no?
You said that the process of reparation that Paco was talking about, I'm not sure I understood. It's organized by...
Digo que el propio proceso puede ser una reparación, pero se
Entonces,
está
¿hay
realizando
reparación?
por las propias familias o por organizaciones que, digamos, son de parte.
But, yeah, it is organized by families and organizations that are...
Que se consideran por parte del otro lado del conflicto como de parte. Entonces lo que nosotros denunciamos y lo que reivindicamos, y es el conflicto principal, es que el Estado tiene que reconocer al que tenía la legitimidad democrática, y el Estado tiene que participar en esas políticas de reparación.
In their view, the state has to take responsibility for this process and the reparation politics.
Por ejemplo, uno de los conflictos ahora mismo que tenemos habitualmente con los ayuntamientos, aparte de las exhumaciones, es el tema de la simbología.
The topic of symbol.
Es dónde y qué se pone en el texto. Tú sacabas antes una... ¿Dónde es?
So, where to put the symbols? Like,
Ellos
for
dicen
example,
en el
the
cementerio.
text.
Cementerio como lugar privado y de duelo de la familia.
Cemetery, which is a private space for
Nuestra
families.
organización dice no, en la plaza del pueblo.
And they say it should go
Lugar
in the center
público
of the village, in the
Y
public
de
space.
reconocimiento, como hacen por ejemplo en Francia con el antinazismo o en Alemania.
Like in France or Germany. with
Y luego
the-
el texto. En el texto, una de dos, o te piden que no se ponga el motivo de la muerte,
In the text,
Ni
they
quién,
usually
ni
ask
quién hizo
not
la
to
muerte.
put, the motive for the killings, or who did it.
y luego se miente sobre las supuestas, estas personas supuestamente por qué murieron o por qué luchaban.
And
Se
another
suele poner por la
lie,
democracia y por la libertad.
is what they were fighting for, the people who were killed.
Cuando a lo
the
mejor
victims.
podríamos poner pues por la república o por la revolución
They
o por lo
should
que sea
put
real
that
dentro de un punto de vista
They were
histórico.
fighting for the Spanish Republic, for the revolution, and not because usually what is on the text is for democracy and
Freedom,
freedom.
or very abstract.
Very
Sí,
abstract
conceptos abstractos, así que parezcan, que puedan ser asumidos por el actual sistema.
Which in a way are accepted by the current system, which is acceptable to the
But this is a question, I think, this is one of our questions in this debate, and this is also a question which I think is really related to this theoretical framework that we have, which has to do with the relation between memory and contextualization, or historical and political contextualization. So I think, the question is, to what extent do these exhumations bring more context, historical context or political context about what actually happened, or do they not bring that, or is it indeed just big words, genocide, or expectations without really bringing historical context? Or maybe that's also what Queralt said a little bit, like historians, they fail to use those sites as a site of investigation. I don't know how you see that. Maybe how you see that, for instance, in Bosnia, that you are, searching for the names, trying to go beyond the process of only DNA analysis or only a number out of a grave, but to what extent does that go to contextualization?
For example, the mass grave in the match study that I show, like the not decomposed bodies, and it was digged up 2013. Now we have a production of documentary stories or reportages about certain groups that were found there. For example, there is a recent documentary about calling the Tomašca mass grave of the soccer team, because 9 persons from 11 players in the local soccer teams were killed and found in this mass grave. So it gives this kind of like perspective, like showing that those people who were found there, like they had their social role at some point in this community. So the documentary is produced, I think it's also online, and after that a memorial was built for those soccer players. So and then you have also the intention of like the movement of building a monument for killed children, in sense of commemorating innocent victims, or victims that are without any doubt, without any you can't question that a child from 4 years is a soldier, without any doubt that these are civilian victims. And also there were attempts to commemorate women as a group, victim group, and showing also the narrative of their life, of their what they did during their life. Or for example, the mass grave that I showed you, the pit. In that pit, one doctor from that town was found there. He was known for his humanistic approach, or like he was part of the Doctors Without Borders. During the 80s, he was active in India and in Africa, and he was killed during the crimes and that. And now there is this kind of like every year commemoration to him, and there's this they give awards for books regarding to certain topics. There's kind of like this also. There are some processes in kind of like taking the social roles from that victims and showing them, presenting them to the public. So also as a process of, I would call it, humanization of those who were at some point dehumanized and killed because
it's not only that. 20 years is a relatively short period. And believe me, I met families, the older women, the older fathers, who actually think that their missing relatives are still alive somewhere after 20 years. they truly believe in that they are hiding somewhere, that it's still problematic for them to come back home and stuff. And I must point other thing. The mass graves in Bosnia and Herzegovina are not just primary mass graves, not the graves of full complete bodies. Most of them are secondary and tertiary, meaning that the grave was once, 2 or 3 times moved somewhere. So the element actually of hiding a crime by moving the graves is also, it's really important to do exhumation to prove it. Not only to identify victims, to identify intent to hide the crime. And there's a case in Srebrenica where one body was reassembled from 4 different graves on totally different locations. DNA actually showed that the biggest part of that reassembling, but in Bosnia it's really important. That's why I'm pointing out it's really important to start the whole process really early. As time goes by, the process somehow loses its value. The way I'm thinking about it, the process of exhumation, it is good for general public health for 2 generations, close relatives and their sons. After they are dead, the process somehow loses its value. After that, it's better to symbolize on some level, to symbolize recognition for the victims by building monuments, by building writing books as a symbols, because there are certain periods that you can't search for victims 200 years. It's nonsense. There's no one alive to support that anymore. So 2 generations should be actually the period where exhumation really mattered. After that, I'm not sure. Maybe it's better to symbolize whole crime, to symbolize the whole process.
I think it's very interesting because in Spain, I think it's the other way around. Because it started with more symbolic exhumations, where you could not know exactly who was in the grave, but still with the closest relatives living. And now, exhumation, scientific exhumations, and DNA identification is very, very important. But the generation is farther than I think on a comparative level.
No, talking about public health, about families, about how to. It's also important thing to recognize public health, not just the memory of what happened.
Yeah, but this kind of like interesting also in this case of children. Again, going back to Marije, because sorry for using this example because it's maybe the example that I know the best. During the excavation, because of the big expectation that a lot of missings that were at that time reported missing will be found there, and having in mind that the bodies were not bones, they were not decomposed, so family members visited that place during the process, and they kind of like get kind of like intimate relationship with the body. In sense like they build it kind of like empathy was much more stronger with the bodies who are not decomposed than the bodies who were just bones. From the other side, on Facebook, it was for me really interesting to see how people like they put this like this not decomposed body on their cover pages on Facebook. It's cover pictures, and some of them put it also on their profile pictures. What does that mean? Like what does it maybe creating the narrative or like trying to use this to create a context or identifying with this. And when you identify, you maybe identify with the victims, you stay in the victim position, and maybe, I don't know, like you create more hate to the other side. And in reality, you live with the other side, or like with the other ethnic groups for which the perpetrator is. And you create this dichotomy, like in one community, antagonism, which is also important, which are also important processes. And also the media coverage. And the media who, and some victim association, not victims, like veteran association, that went to the site and sent a message like, we will build here a memorial for all the killed, no. Okay, who are you? You are a veteran. And like, probably maybe you committed also some real crimes. Like, not like this, but at some point. And the victims, they do not see this location as like a memorial site, because it was like, as I said, they wanted to dig up the body as soon as possible, to identify them, and to go to this religious ceremony of burying that body, burying the loved ones, and finishing their I don't know, their process of grievance and of being sad, or like finishing the facing with their trauma, and that's it. And the narrative was created also about this. It was a genocide, we were victims of genocide, we have the right to do this, we have the right to do this. Who are you to tell me that I'm not a victim of genocide? Not really understanding that, for example, crimes against humanity and genocide is kind of like a similar thing, or like in the Muslim tradition you have the saying, if you kill one person, you kill the whole humanity. If you kill one innocent person, so it's like, okay.
Yeah. Then, as I understand, in Bosnia you have the same kind of focus, or maybe a privatization of memory, in the sense that the families want just to bury and mourn, and maybe they are further away, distanced from state practices of remembrance.
The state's practices are misused, like they are used for building ethnic identities.
Yeah.
Because the mass graves are foundation of their identities, or foundation or source of their powers. That's their power that keeps them on the top of the country. Because they say like, okay, if I'm not here, I'm the protector of my ethnic group. If I'm not here, maybe this mass grave will happen to your child. I protect you from that, and you have to vote for fear to the, community, and like it keeps them running, and that's why we have this political situation. That's my explanation. Of course, there are other factors that relate to this, but this is one of that, because mass graves and crimes and this victim identity is the source of the power for those who are on top of the country, politicians. And political parties,
we actually did,
which are the same like the one who started the war.
Yeah, because I think that's, and I think in Poland also a mass grave can be a site of political power and identification, or at least that's what happens a little bit in Polski at this moment, I think. But I find it an interesting debate when I think about the comparative level, because in Spain there is no state support. So everything we want is state support.
Yeah.
But when you look at countries where mass grave exhumations have state support, then you can see that this can be also a site of political power.
Depends. In Bosnia, you have to define state support. Because you have different level of government, different level of governance, you have like different parts. It's like maybe in Spain, like different regions. Yeah. So you have different governments who tell total, not total, but like 90% different narratives.
The interpretation is, in most cases, so really different for each side. Even if you find one grave in the middle, one side will tell one story, the other one will not. That's the one of the consequences when you have the government involved in the whole process. How to interpret it.
It is interesting, like the Catholic community in the city of Queralt is 90% wiped out with crimes, and it was still not just, or like the Catholic Church do not see this as how to see it as opportunity for change, you know, like, or they do not see it as something that they should push into the public space in this city, because the leader of Croats who are like Catholics, in Bosnia, he has like really good ties and relations with the Serbian government in this Serbian part of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So it's maybe a political question also. You have a Croat village that's wiped out, like from 200 members that lived there before the war in 1991, according to the census, 150 something were killed, maybe 10 living now there, others are somewhere in the world. So it's like, what are you talking?
The problem of Bosnia is actually, on contrary to Poland and Spain, that we have close involvement of two other countries, Croatia and Serbia. Yeah. And the process is more, and the whole process of exhumation has large legal modes. Because one important thing, families who are recognized to be genocide victims can actually sue the other country and try to get some compensation, money compensation or something. That's the whole, at the moment, that's the bigger problem in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because it could get to it that after this verdict of Hague Tribunal, some victims could together form a suit against Serbia. Same goes for Croatia after this latest verdict for the six persons with with the suicide pride. And to be honest, why is this whole process hardly institutionalized in Bosnia and Herzegovina? Because we have different problems, actually. The biggest problem in Bosnia and Herzegovina is actually mental health of the families and relatives, not the memory of whole process. Because we didn't finish the mourning of all the process. We are still in it. And on the other hand, Spain and Poland are probably in this memorial problem, how to actually deal with the history, or how to prove the history was right or wrong. We still didn't go that far. We are still in the beginning of it. With the whole process of exhumation, we are trying to conclude the mourning, to conclude the whole actually to make all mental health of the whole population better. Because only the truth can discovering the truth, saying that was happened, can actually finish the moment.
Yeah, but I think the same arguments are in the Polish debate on exhumations are used about bringing closure, yes, identifying the bodies, completing the healing process, burying the dead. But I'm not sure if this is really the case. Would you agree? I mean, this is an argument which is used in public debate, but
I think
is there validation to this argument?
I think on the individual level it really matters for the relatives, and if we talk about those people who were executed and buried with unidentified graves, it is in Poland, which culture is based on Catholicism. the count of the graves of our relatives is very important. We have a custom to light candles on the 1st of November, which is All Saints' Day, and it's a very, very strong tradition. And for the family members of those people who are executed and whose place of burial was unknown, I think their mourning has not been concluded, because they had no place to light this candle every year. And as we know from them, because they tell us, it's very important for them that their relative, their father in many cases, or grandfather, or uncle, was identified, and that this person has got an individual grave. It's very important, I think. But it's also important on the more general level. It's not so personal, but it's perceived as doing justice to these victims, to give them individual grave, because it's perceived as a value in Polish society.
I recognize it, but on the other, I recognize this, vernacular, let's say, part, this personal part. But on the other hand, I also, as a sociologist, as a trained sociologist, I see, this power game and the politics that is going on here. And I think the state also instrumentalizes those remains to create a narrative.
At some stage it started instrumentalizing it. I agree. But nevertheless, from the family members, for relatives, it's very important.
Yes, for example, if you ask somebody from Bosnia, you present them 70% of all missing cases were solved. And if my case is not solved, you didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
It's like you can solve 99%, put it in statistics, you were really successful, the first in the world. But if you don't find the lost one, you did nothing. That's the case of closure and the importance and maybe the process. That's the process of mourning of the individual family. That's really important. And also, you asked the question about context, which is for me it came to my mind. One local poet. He's a theater director. He is a poet. He writes poems. He was motivated by his origin, or his people committed crime, to those who were found in the international grave, and he wrote a poem telling. In this poem, he told the story about his school friend. She was ethnic cleansed from his town, and she's now living somewhere in Germany or France, I don't know, but somewhere not in Bosnia. And he said, in his poem, he tells the story about she's going back, and he met her 2009, and he asked her oh, what's up? What are you doing? And oh, they called me. They found remains of my brother, and then she told him that. And then he asked her 2011, oh, what's up? I see you again. And she said they called me. They found another piece of my brother. And then he met her 2013, 14, and asked her, oh, how are you doing? They called me. They found a piece of my brother. And then she concludes this I'm afraid that there is no space in his grave. And this poem is telling maybe also this that. And after the Tomasz Sergej, that author kind of wrote about these processes of in his community. I can send you Darko Cvjetić is his name, and he's really great in this context.
I think we should pause the debate and go for lunch, and then just keep on going, basically. Yes.
Kind of try to bring some of the issues that we can organize them and bring them back in the afternoon and try to cross borders again and try to see how it happens in the different cases. So, well, thank you very much for for the debate.